I think it is important that we have good public media in New Zealand. Publicly funded, non-commercial, public interest media. When I was thinking about answering the question of why having it would be important, I started to think about how far the media has come since it started. So I decided to call my grandmother to see what she thought about the media in her day.
We did have radio. We called it wireless, and it was either the newspaper or the wireless.
You knew that you could trust it, like it wasn't
Oh no, we could trust it all right. My God, we children had to shut up. My father had his ears for the radio. Shush, 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 the news is on. Shush.
So it seems that back in the day, when my grandmother was just a young lady, that the news was very trusted. Having the news only coming from the newspaper and the wireless meant that there was something quite special and premium about the news. The news didn't have room for opinions. Not just anyone could go on the radio or write an article with their opinion on a news story. Nowadays it's a little different. Now we have the addition of television and the internet. With television there are a lot of channels and time slots, and in New Zealand we have multiple options as to what news program we want to watch. News Hub, One News, Prime News, The AM Show, 7 Sharp, The Project. But they're all commercial. The AM Show, 7 Sharp, and The Project all have people sitting at a desk reporting a news story before discussing their opinions on it. Not that these shows are doing it wrong, but they're just more in the entertainment spectrum. And I know News Hub, One News, and Prime News don't share the same idea of showcasing opinions, but they are still all interrupted by commercials. I decided to call Jesse Mulligan to get some insight as to how the news is delivered to New Zealanders. Turns out he was too busy, so I called my mate Jared McCulloch instead.
Our obviously public broadcasting as such, to a degree, is obviously in television is TVNZ, which has obviously commercials. It's still a commercial run station. It needs to make money, it needs to make a profit, it needs to make a return. But if we look away from just television, and then there's RNZ, that would be the prime example of public media in New Zealand. I think the other thing to add to this though too is it's ever changing. Media in the last, easily in the last decade, has sort of lost its little bit of where it's going only because of the rise of the internet and digital and the way we access information, the way we delivered our news. Back in the day, 6 o'clock, that's how you got your pictures for the day. Now you can just check on your phone, check on your computer, check on your laptop, check on your iPad, whenever you want, which makes it a little bit more tricky.
On the internet, anyone can say anything about anything. There are a large amount of articles on the internet, and a lot of them are opinion pieces. But what can be considered news? The story, or how the author feels about the story? I don't think articles that are really opinion pieces should be shown on a news site like Stuff. I think news should come from an unbiased view. I know that's my opinion, but hey, this ain't news. Once there's an opinion involved, a news story becomes altered. If there's part of a story that a reporter, editor, or manager doesn't morally agree with, it can be removed. And they even have the ability to add extra comments in order to try and persuade the reader or viewer to share the same opinion with them. And once financial gain becomes part of the mix, let's say Bunnings opens a new store and will pay you to do a story on it to promote it, anything can be deemed newsworthy. I'm reporting live from the new Bunnings that has just opened up, and they're selling a new exclusive hose reel for only $25. And I'm just receiving word that there are more bargains within the store itself. Back to you, Jasper. Meanwhile, there could be a South American food festival that only happens once every 5 years in the local area. Except the manager of your news outlet might not like the guy who runs the festival. Him and the festival guy might have a little beef. He might not like avocados. But he can choose for your news outlet not to do a story on the festival merely based on his personal beliefs. And this leads to consumers of the media seeing an altered view of current events, only half a story with a biased view against avocados, or even no story at all. Now, earlier this year in Year 11 Media Studies, we studied reality TV. We learned about conventions that are used to manipulate or captivate an audience. It was interesting because we got some insight as to how music is used to make the audience feel a certain way. How how contestants on a show are watered down to stock characters like the villain,
I will unleash the power of 1,000 avocados.
the nice one,
I really hope my shift degree pays off. Wish me luck.
and the underdog,
Man, I gotta make something really good to impress her. She's definitely worth it.
created just so that the audience doesn't have to think too hard about how to judge someone's character. But then we had to make one. I made one with my friend Maya as well as some other friends. And yeah, it was really fun. It was called Love at First Bite, and it was a dating cooking show. But we just learned about how manipulative reality TV can be. And now we know how to make one. At least from making reality TV, I've learned that it isn't very real. That there are actually techniques used to make the audience think a certain way. It's manipulative. But who's to say there aren't any conventions of biased news stories in order to do the same thing? Consumers of the news should be able to form their own opinions on a news story. The news shouldn't be someone else's take on a current event. It should just be the news. New events. And I think it's important that New Zealanders have a place for publicly funded, non-commercial, public interest media. No commercial interference and no biased takes on news stories. However way it would be done, I think it would be important for it to be accessible by all demographics, because every New Zealander deserves to know what's happening in their own country. Internet savvy kids could access it via the internet, and not so internet savvy people like my grandmother could access it on the TV or the radio at an allocated time. Because I do think that better public media in New Zealand is important. Thank you.